Heads Association of IB World Schools India, Vice Chairperson CBSE School Sahodaya, Hyderabad. She's the author of Science, Math, and English books for grades 1 to 8, a keen learner and a passionate trekker. She's an IB workshop leader and school visit team member. Sita ma'am is somebody, if I talk about her personal traits, I would just go on and on. What I see is every time that I meet her, I see renewed vigor. Every time she's full of so much of energy, passion to do work, full of ideas, full of commitment and desire to make those ideas successful. I have personally taken up so many ideas from you, ma'am, and I have seen them working in my school too. Hats off to your vision, the kind of education you are trying to give in your schools, and not only limiting yourself to your schools, but spreading your knowledge with all of us. Adarshila has given one more opportunity to get in touch with you and learn, continue this journey of learning from you. Friends, it is said by Seth Godin that everybody has their own Mount Everest they were put on this earth to climb. Whether it is our personal life or it's professional, we climb this Mount Everest, our own personal Mount Everest, on a daily basis. Today we have Miss Sita here, who would tell us more about what is our Everest, what it means to ma'am, and what she does to climb this Everest confidently and successfully. So, Sita ma'am, welcome
Thank
to
you,
you.
Dina. Thank you so much for that warm introduction,
Thank
as you are always so warm and affectionate. We both are good friends and colleagues, and we work together, and we are working together in this field of education. So, neither me nor you are mentors, we are colleagues, and we are making wonderful things happen through this work. Okay? Both of us are making ourselves useful. Having come to this planet Earth, we are finding ways, exploring ways, and creating ways to make ourselves useful. Okay?
That's
So
beautiful.
in this journey of being useful, I remember I always used to tell my students or my teachers, I still tell them that when you come to this planet, each one of us have a purpose.
True.
Okay? The purpose is not written anywhere. It is purpose. And how do
Right.
you create that mission that this is my purpose and this is what I want to make myself useful to the whole world is something that we have to write to ourselves. Okay?
Absolutely.
So in Hindi, it is very commonly said, कोई आया और गया किसी को पता भी नहीं चला. We
Right.
can't be people like that. We need to be people because I think who gets this opportunity of being teachers? Not everybody gets an opportunity and a privilege and an honor to be a teacher. And to be a
Very
teacher
true.
means God has already vested in us, and we have taken that responsibility to be leaders. So,
True.
with this privilege, with this honor, how do we make ourselves more useful, more productive, progressive, effective? All these things are something that I feel is a process of finding your Everest.
True.
Okay. Uh, if you really see physically that Mount Everest, 28,000 feet, and recently I read a news that, actually it is a little more than 28,000,
Oh,
whatever it is, even if it is 30,000 feet, that
right.
being the highest point on the planet Earth right now, okay? And if you take that as an analogy, that is where I want to reach. Each day you're climbing the Mount Everest because you
Right.
have already set your goal. And I must give appreciation and thanks to my very dear friend called Krishna Sagar, who has written a book called Summit Your Everest. That was the title of his book. So I have to give credit to him for using this, for letting me use this in many of my presentations and talks, because I connect to that Summit Your Everest so deeply that it actually means nobody is setting your target, you are setting it yourself, and each day you are working towards climbing it each day, because you have set the target, you know how to realize it, and you are the one who are going to create the processes or the plans to climb that altitude. And that's why I often use this title called summit your Everest, because it has not been set by your parents or the society or your colleagues or your organization. It is you who has said that I want to climb there. So for today, 1,000 feet may be my Everest. For tomorrow, it may be 2,500. For day after tomorrow, it may be 8,000. And the next day, I may come back to 1,000. But again, I'm beginning to climb it back, because life is like a trek. And I often use this analogy of trekking, because in your introduction, you already said, I'm a passionate trekker. And I didn't become a trekker just like that, but I become a trekker with all my mind, soul, body into it. I wanted to do it. And I had so many challenges, but then I thought, this is how I need to do it. This is how I need to summit it. So whether it's life or it's your professional life, and of course the personal life, in all these areas, how do you determine your Everest? Like, what could be Everest in a personal life? First is your own happiness, happiness of people around you,
Right.
okay? Happiness in the society around you. Then you just imagine what kind of a potential we are when we are able to build our own happiness and create happiness to the people around us. Then that's my Everest, that I need to be happy and peaceful and positive. I need to work towards creating a similar feeling or vibes in the people at home and at work.
Hmm.
And then I need to see how this is going to multiply and multiply. That's my Everest at home, personally. And if
Right.
I have to look at the professional life and what is my Everest, I am constantly looking at what else can I do. When something goes wrong, I ask myself, what did I not do that this went wrong? When something goes right, I'm asking myself, what else can I do to make it better than what it is? So, in all this, the title that I've chosen, Summit Your Everest, makes me feel each day I'm setting my goals, my targets, and trying to climb
Right.
them, send them, and feel
Right.
good about it, that I am able to make use of my life.
That's wonderful. So, friends, there is no blueprint of a particular Everest here. Everybody has his own personal Everest, and you decide what you want to achieve, how you want to reach. Yes, there would be tools, because we are looking forward to understanding what those tools are, because we are going to create the toolkit as Miss Sita would be guiding us. So, ma'am, it was quite clear that everyone has their own targets to achieve. They have to set their own targets, they, whether it's personal life or professional life. And you have said that you look at it from how you can make it better, what has been done. You analyze and you see what could have been done to make it better, and if
Right.
something which is, you know so I see that it can apply to your personal as well as professional life. I would like to know, what are those tools which help you trek this summit?
Wonderful. I'm glad you asked me that question, Jaya, because as I said, I want this to be a conversation, because each one of us connect to something or the other in life
Right.
which makes us feel better, which
Right.
makes us feel this is how I want to do it and this is what I want to do. Okay. So perhaps I would start sharing the toolkit like this. Okay. Many of you would have heard about the 7 habits of highly effective people. That's the first
Stephen
toolkit
Covey.
that I would like to talk about.
Yeah.
And I have to show this book. By the way, this book
Stephen.
has been my Bible for the last 21 years. Okay. This is the first edition of this book. Now, if you go into the market and try to find the book, you will get it much smaller than this. This is not the size you will find. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Revised editions.
yeah. So it's a big book. I feel so comfortable because the page size is book. Oh, it was in the bookmark fell down. The page size is big. The font size is relatively comfortable. It's not cramped. It has a
Mhm.
visual space. So I, even if I have the new editions, new editions, I use this. Now I'm worried that this will become a museum piece very soon because I use it so much. Okay. So Dr. Stephen Covey, okay,
Yes.
uh, an American motivational speaker and writer. may not know that he has an ardent follower in me, but he's up there in the seventh heaven right now.
He has
But
millions of fans
yeah,
like you
millions
and
of
me.
fans across the
Yes,
world,
yes,
millions of followers, I would say,
yes.
because I think what he did was he understood that it's not about, because the time that he came up with this book or with this theory of 7 habits of highly effective people was when people like Dale Carnegie and others were talking about organizational development through your soft skills. Okay.
Right.
What Stephen Covey had done differently, I must say, is
Hmm.
he arrived at these 7 habits which can make people effective,
Right.
in which the first 3 habits are for your personal effectiveness.
Right.
So be proactive. First things first. Begin with an end in mind. These are the first 3 habits, okay, which are for your personal effectiveness. It's not about you and the world, it's about you and you. Okay. So when I become a proactive person, when I actually, whatever I'm doing, I begin with an end in mind. And if I put first things first, and if I know what is first thing, by the way, and if I put first things first, there is some amount of effectiveness that's building within me. And I'm gradually becoming that person that I like. Recently, one of my third graders, she was interpreting what is being open minded. She says, when I'm not open minded, I don't like myself because I'm having negative thoughts inside me. I'm probably not liking what the others are saying. And there is a frown on my forehead, which is not making me feel good. That is a heightened awareness, self-awareness for a third grader, a nine-year-old child to be able to say that. How many of us know when we don't like ourselves and when we like ourselves? How many of us recognize why we don't like ourselves? And and for me, when I started looking at these 3 habits, be proactive, put first things first, and begin with an end in mind. So I'll give you an example of being proactive. While being proactive is not just about being active, it is about taking one step more than being active. Okay? It is not being reactive. So there is a beautiful explanation Dr. Stephen Covey gives in this book. He says, takes the example of Professor Viktor Frankl. All of us will get his books on Amazon and everywhere.
The
Trust
Man's
me,
Search for Meaning is
absolutely,
a
same gentleman,
amazing
same
book
gentleman.
by him.
So he's a Jewish psychologist whose town was raided by the Nazis. Okay, and the Nazis took his entire family as prisoners of war. To torture him, they physically tortured his family in front of him. Okay, I tell this story to so many people because it's an experience one of us, it's a lesson all of us have to learn. They physically tortured the family members of the psychologist in front of him. Now there were these moments of devastation that he felt, and then he told himself, all they are doing is emotional torture to me. If I switch off my emotion, because I have a choice, either I emote or don't emote. I switch off my emotion and I sit and say, do whatever you want. I don't want to react. Because when I react, they're liking it more. When I'm crying and screaming and shouting, they're liking it more. And they're torturing my family more. I'm also torturing myself by emoting. So he made a choice to not react to it and to switch off his mind from what torture is happening in front of him. It worked. It worked with him, and he realized that you have a choice between the stimulus and the response. You have a choice how you want to respond to that situation. And that is what is called being proactive. I love that Jaya, I must tell you the number of times I read that again and again, those pages, because it's not easy to sit in a chair, you're tied down to a chair, your family members are being physically tortured, and then you're counseling yourself that I don't want to respond to it. Okay, I think that is the best way of teaching yourself to be proactive. Well, the entire family got killed. Now it's a turn of himself, Viktor Frankl himself. They started extracting his nails, driving nails through his farm and things like that. Now, he used the same thing on himself once again. I could switch off my mind and prevent myself from reacting to it. Now, can I switch off my mind and refuse to acknowledge the physical pain? Okay, this is a question he had in his mind. And each day he worked on it. By the time the Nazis were done with him, he was also done with himself in terms of his mind did not acknowledge the physical pain. Okay, he survived. He came out alive. The war was over. All the prisoners of war were set free. He went back to Austria, from there to the USA, to teach his own theory called logotherapy. Logotherapy is between the stimulus and the response, you have a choice. Okay? And how do you choose your responses so that you still retain your peace of mind, your control over your emotions? Because everything in the world, including the traffic jam, can make you react differently. Okay? But how do you have control over your own responses? And how do you enable yourself to choose your responses is what is being proactive. Okay. In the entire book, that section has about 10 to 12 pages about talking about logotherapy and Viktor Frankl's experiences. I think that has been a major influencer on me. So how did I try it? I must tell you how I tried it also. Those were the days when I was reading this book. We were getting our apartment renovated. And every evening, me and my husband would have huge arguments of which color should go on which wall. Okay, which part of the furniture should go to which corner of the room or center of the room. So there were 3-4 days, 5 days a week, and then that was when I was reading this part, and I told myself, is my peace of mind important or the color on the wall important? Okay, because I seem to be getting into arguments every evening, and I'm not feeling good about it. At the end of it, it's only a color. It's only the placement of a sofa here or there. And why am I trivializing myself like this? Okay. So, I mean, I think to the utter shock of my husband, I once said, whatever you feel like. Okay. He was shocked. Oh, this lady is not even pouncing back at me. She's not even arguing back with me. But then when I saw his reaction, when I said, whatever you like, do it, he asked me, no, you do whatever you want. I think sometimes when they say, no, choose your battles wise, it is not even a battle in the first place, but then it could be a battle enough to spoil your peace of mind. I have chosen to respond differently, which changed the situation for me. And that was the beginning of my experiment. I experimented in many ways as to how, if I choose to respond like this, how will the situation be? And trust me, it's 20 years now. I think being proactive is choosing your responses. Your children, your colleagues, your family members, strangers, anybody can make you into a monkey. Anybody can make you respond, and later you won't like yourself. Why did I shout like that? Why did I do this? That means you are a jamura in somebody's hands. You cannot give the control. You cannot give your remote to somebody. That is what is being proactive. Now I'll tell you the other part of it also, the physical part of it. If Viktor Frankl could resist, could refuse to acknowledge the physical pain, is it possible for me, was a question that I asked myself. Right. So I had my share of it also. I went and sat in my dentist chair. I had to get my tooth extracted. And you know very well how sensitive all of us are.
And how scary it
is. When you're sitting in the dentist chair, that's the place you can say nothing except the pain. I always say one thing, the only person who can make me shut up is a dentist. Like this. Okay. But then I tried this, Jaya. I told myself, I am not going to recognize the pain that's going to happen when he extracts the tooth. I switched off my mind. I kept thinking about everything that can divert me from that current situation. And it worked. It really worked. And I'm not exaggerating. It worked. Okay. That, like, in case of the emotional and in case of the physical, in both experiments, I felt a difference in myself, and I began to see that life can be led like this too. That you don't have to be that typical emotional being who will react to everything, who will scream, shout at everything. Okay. So for me, those personal habits of being proactive, then the second habit, which is begin with an end in mind. Okay. Oh, it's like that Alice in Wonderland story. Remember? If you don't know where you're going, why do you don't need a plan. You have to make a plan if you're going somewhere. That's why you have to plan what is your Everest. And if you plan your Everest, every day you're planning, this is what I want to do today. I want to read a book by the end of this month. Okay. Then that's your target towards climbing the Everest. How do you make time for it? How do you make time for reading that book, doing your work, doing your chores, being that woman in the house who is like the superwoman? Everything is a choice that you have to make. Okay. And you have to make a plan, begin with an end in mind. Then comes the put first things first. Many of us don't know what is the first thing for us. Is that WhatsApp message the first thing? Is that mail the first thing? Is that call the first thing? Or getting ready and going to work the first thing? Which one is the first thing? When the day you know how to prioritize what is your first thing, who says there's no time then? Because when you set your priorities, because this is the end I want to be there, this is the Everest I want to climb, these are the first things. I will do this first and I'll do that next and that next. Okay. Will help you plan your entire life trek. It'll help you plan the trek of your life, whether it's personal or professional. Okay. So these three habits help me largely to be personally effective to some extent. I haven't reached anywhere yet. I haven't reached my Everest, but every day there is an Everest that I'm climbing. Then I'll come to the second set of habits, the four of them. The four
I
of
think,
them
ma'am,
are,
you would be
yeah,
saying that every day because there is a new target set for that day and a
yes,
new dream always.
absolutely. I don't like status quo, Jaya. Trust me,
Yeah.
even if, as of now, I think I have climbed 9 years, I've been going on Himalayan treks every summer. I couldn't go in 2020 summer. I couldn't go in 2019 summer also because I was at US at the time. So I couldn't. But every summer, I have been climbing the Himalayas. So far, I climbed 14,000 feet. Okay. Another 14,000, I'm climbing the Mount Everest, right? But I don't know if I do that or not. But I do remember that sometime back, a few years ago, I was in Kathmandu. I took this mountain flight, and which gives you an overview of all the Himalayan peaks. And when they took us over the Everest, I had the the fortune to be in the cockpit, and I took a picture of Mount Everest from up there. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Life appears different when you start realizing what are your targets, what is the highest point, and what is it that you can look down at. Your perspectives change. Even if I climb the 28,000 feet physically, I think I will try to look for another Everest. Because if you settle to status quo, if you settle to that, trust me, that day you stop living.
I agree with you, ma'am. Stagnation is something I can't associate with you. And
Yeah.
I've been seeing every year how you have been doing it. And it's not just the trekking, but I've seen during the year also how you engage with various physical activities, mental activities, because this is what is actually preparing you.
Yeah.
And when you know what is the goal, you also know what preparation would be required. I liked how you said it's all about controlling your mind rather than letting your mind control you. It's not only for emotional pain but for physical pain, and you also
Absolutely.
practically did it. It's fantastic, incredible.
because you are your own guinea pig, right? You want to experiment everything
Right.
yourself because it's not that I cannot possibly preach anything if I have not practiced it,
Absolutely.
right? None of us educators, none of us teachers can
Yes.
be influencers unless we have done something and then we give them the examples that this is how you can do it. Okay?
Right.
So, talking about the second set of habits, the in the 7 habits, the first 3 are for your personal effectiveness. The next
Yes.
4 are for your public effectiveness. Okay, so it talks about think win-win. I loved it. How much ever you may read about this habit, it takes a lot of perseverance for you to start looking at that you can also be right, I can also be right. It's just that you think differently and I think differently. The day you reach that stage, you will feel like a sage, by the way. Okay, but then you will still feel more alive because you will start respecting yourself that you could respect others' opinion. What is think win-win? Think win-win is about that you are right, I am right. It's just that we think differently. And if I start arguing with you, Jaya, you don't think like me. You're wrong. Which is, I'm sorry to say, but so typically Indian trait. For you to be right, somebody has to be wrong, which is so very sad that, why should you make somebody wrong for you to be right? You be right. And if some so think win-win is all about understanding
Hmm.
multiple perspectives. And
Right.
there's one line because we are IB World schools. I'm saying that IB being an IB World school is not about flashing that IB World logo in front
Hmm.
of your whatever you do. It's about your international mindedness. It's about how other people with their differences can also be right.
Right.
So think win-win is that you and I in the jobs that we do, and all the members who are now watching this, in the jobs that we do, those children who sit in our class and those teachers we work with, and the parents we attend to, each one thinks differently.
Yes.
And if we think only we know and only we are right, okay, we are being preachers and not teachers. We are being preachers of our ideas. And who knows how much we know that, that our own preconceived notions and narrow knowledge we may be preaching. So it's
Yes.
so important in our roles that we need to think win-win. Even that 12-year-old fellow in the classroom can be right
Yes.
most of the time.
Yes.
Even that little child, 4-year-old child in the classroom can be more right than you and me. Okay, so it's so important for us to widen our perspective and think win-win. And
Absolutely.
then, of course, I like that seek first to understand, then to be understood. Okay,
The
and
prayer of Father Assisi.
yeah, exactly.
Saint Assisi.
Because we
Beautiful.
are always wanting someone to listen to us. We are not wanting to understand what do they want to say.
Yes.
Imagine a scenario where there's somebody who's wanting to say something to you. You just go quiet and you listen to the whole thing, not because you want to give a reply, but because you want to understand what is it that they're trying to say. And then whatever you want to respond, you respond.
Right.
Trust me, you grow, you are 1,000 feet closer to the Everest then.
Wow.
Because, in all this, I'm talking about who we can become. I'm not talking about what we can do to the world. Because,
Right.
the world is you and me.
Right.
When you are a better person, when you are able to elevate yourself to another altitude, that is when the world becomes a better person. And of course, that there's that habit called synergize. Dr. Stephen Covey says 2 plus 2 should be 22, not just 4. If two people, okay,
Yeah.
and two more people are to 4 people are putting their energies together in a school, it should be equivalent to 22 people's energy. It
Right.
just can't be equivalent to 4 people's energy. That's
Right.
what is called as, synergizing. All of us, like, something like Jaya, we work together in the ETST, we work together in some training program sometime
Yes.
last year we did that. You have your energy and I have my energy. You have your own strengths and I have my own strengths. When we put these together,
Right.
imagine the impact on the on the students we are working with, or on the people we are working with. That
Right.
is what is called as synergizing, collaborating, working together, sharing our strengths. Okay. And the last one is
Fantastic.
sharpen. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I simply love
Not
that because,
linear addition. Our
yeah,
strengths, our energies are not linear additions. They,
exactly.
exponentially we affect each other's strengths, and it cannot just be a
Exactly.
simple addition.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I think we should all be like, calculus, exponential growth. That should be the
Yes.
way.
Yes.
Um, like I remember when we introduced IB about 13 years ago in our school, when
Mhm.
IB said that, no, no, you can't have subject teachers. You have to have one teacher who is a
Mhm.
homeroom teacher who teaches all four subjects: English, math, science, social.
Mhm.
So then I debated a lot with them, saying that, oh, you see, after 10th grade, either you are into humanities or into sciences, one
Mhm.
teacher cannot teach all the subjects. They
Mhm.
said no. Okay. That's when we saw the potential of collaboration.
Yes.
So you have one teacher whose strength is math and science, and you have another teacher whose strength is English and social. The two of them work together,
Mhm.
helped each other, and strengthened themselves to become a true IB teacher. Okay.
Amazing.
So when the culture has been that, I learn from you and you learn from me. That's what is synergizing, right? And then the last one is sharpen your saw, your mental saw, your physical saw, your spiritual saw. Every day keep sharpening. There is that anecdote about a carpenter, about two carpenters. One fellow who is not so smart, he's trying to cut the tree with the saw, and it takes days together to cut one tree. And you have another fellow who keeps sharpening his saw every 2 hours. So in a day, he's chopping down two to three of them. Okay. The difference between them is this man is taking rest, taking a pause, but sharpening his saw every 2 hours. The other man is not doing that. I think all of us have to realize that, why in our jobs, in our roles, in whatever roles that we are living in, at home and at work, how do we maximize or optimize our potential? By taking necessary breaks, which actually make our heart and mind feel good. Even, taking a break and then enhancing our skills, it should not be a prescription from somebody. It should be your own soul calling. You should know what makes you feel better. You should know what is it that makes you feel that today I feel that much more better, that much more cheerful. So that's what is sharp in the saw. So these 7 habits, Jaya, have been this book, and these 7 habits have been my Bible, my commandments, and my guiding principles, and have been my habits. Definitely have been my habits. They help me become a better person that I like. So
Amazing. So
that's
these are wonderful tools, and we all have to now keep these tools and also keep on sharpening so that we don't forget it. Keep sharpening the
yeah,
saw, the amount of
so
energy
true,
time we invest in developing
so true.
ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the first toolkit. I usually do workshops on 7 habits. On each of the habit, I
Right.
spend some good amount of time, and I do a lot of exercises around them so that people make their own personal mission statement as to how they can, help themselves grow better. But then this has been a fantastic toolkit for me.
So
Each time,
the book,
yes,
I would
the book
recommend
and the
all
7 habits.
the educators to
Absolutely.
read the book. This is
Yeah.
fantastic. And also, I would like you to read the book that ma'am mentioned before by Viktor Frankl. I happened to read the book during the quarantine. So, there was a bright side to
Okay.
this quarantine, actually, to this lockdown. So,
Okay.
fantastic books, my dear friends. Please arrange for the books and read. And I would now request ma'am to share another leaf out of her book of wisdom and tell us the next tool map.
Sure, Jaya. So, one more suggestion I would like to make is when
Sure.
you read a book, read it in groups
Fantastic.
with, with somebody with whom you vibe well. Okay, we call it as professional reading groups, right? So you read a paragraph aloud, and then you discuss about it. You invite discussions around it, and the second person reads the second paragraph. So when you start doing it, whether online or face to face, you grow into that book. because you're already growing with multiple perspectives that comes out of the book and out of the people who are there with you. So I always suggest, when you read a book, first try reading with others, then sit at home and read on your own. There are so many takeaways from each of the page that you can do. Any book it may be. Okay. Now, my second toolkit. Okay. I don't know how many of you have heard about this professor called Edward de Bono. Okay. Edward de Bono, the Maltese professor, sometimes in some conference he told, I believe, that I'm the only professor of thinking in the world. Okay, on a lighter tone, because he's the one who came up with that term called lateral thinking. Lateral thinking.
Yes.
If you remember, in the last 10 to 15 years, I must say, around lateral thinking, so many books have come, so many theories have come, workshops have been developed by many universities. But lateral thinking does not happen just like that. Okay, there is an investment we have to make in ourselves about how am I thinking, what am I thinking. So Edward de Bono, you must have heard about the 6 thinking hacks.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a wonderful book and wonderful strategy for
So
group discussion, taking people.
I'm sure you must have. Yeah. It actually gives you a direction to thinking.
Yes.
Like I can probably, when I'm wearing a green hat, I'm thinking for new ideas. I'm wearing a black hat, I'm looking at what could go wrong. So each color, even if you're hosting a birthday party at home, you can use the 6 thinking hats, because how do I host the party so that it goes well?
Absolutely.
And even if you're hosting an event in the school, the 6 thinking hats will help you plan the event so diligently and systematically, because each one gives you an idea in a particular direction. You know, he's come up with a book called Why So Stupid. I would strongly recommend. I wish I was searching for that book in my bookshelf to show it to you all. Okay.
Please repeat the name, ma'am.
Why So Stupid?
Why So Stupid?
That's the title of the book. Okay. When you see the book, his lateral thinking, his way of making people think differently is visible on the book cover. Usually you will find a book cover, you know, like this. But his cover begins from here and ends somewhere else, because he says, who says it should be like this?
Right. Why to follow some norms?
Yeah. And in that book, he even questioned, who says a wheel has to be only circular? Why can't a wheel be square? Okay. There's so many questions that he poses to you that will make you think about your own paradigm. Okay. But one particular thing that I'd like to talk about, which helped me a lot and which may be useful to many of you also, is it talks about logic. Okay. In any paradigm shift, it is your logic that stops you, your thought process that stops you, that how can I think differently like that? Because you grew up thinking in a particular way and it's not easy for you to think differently. Okay. So he came up with this analogy to explain rigid thinking and fluid thinking. So the analogy is, he calls it as rock logic versus water logic. Okay. Now rocks, I don't know, in the Deccan Plateau and even in Hyderabad, you will see them. There is huge rocks. Nobody can move them. Okay. So he compares the non-movement of rocks, the solidness of being stuck to one place, as the rigid. Logic of people who are so rigid that they don't want to shift it. They don't want to think differently.
Right.
So he says, here is rock logic, where people just think the way they want to think and do not want to even open up their mind to think differently. And then he brings another analogy called water logic, like how the water flows. And when the water flows, the beautiful part of waterfall is, even if there are rocks around, water finds its way. Right? So water logic is something that can make you go ahead in life. It makes you feel that, oh, here is the challenge. How can I think differently to help me cope with the situation? But then if you have a rock logic, you're not thinking about how to think differently. You're thinking about how worse life can be, right?
True.
Yeah,
And also just trying how with what I know I can make the best
exactly.
possible. I'm not
Exactly.
ready to listen of any new
Yeah.
idea or try
Yeah.
something new.
So, with no offense meant, I often give these examples that, rock logic is something that you will find in in the way governments function. Because this is how it is written, I will not do it in any other way.
There's a term for that in Hindi called lakir ke fakir. They won't change with times or with situation.
Absolutely, that's
Going
rock
by the
logic.
rule book. Rule book.
Exactly. Okay.
Yes.
And here you have the water logic, where all of us are constantly looking for different ways to do it,
Right.
innovative ways to do things. Okay. Why do you think it should be taught like this? Why can't it be taught like that? Why do you
Right.
think all the children have to sit in rows and benches? Why can't they sit in groups and learn? Okay. So, water logic and rock logic, the
Mm-hmm.
moment you start, whenever you make a decision, whenever you say something in your school or in your organization, ask yourself, where is this decision coming from? Is it
Hmm.
coming from your rock
Rock
logic
logic or
or
water
your
logic.
water logic? When a teacher comes and proposes to you that, can I do it like this? Absolutely not. You have people who say that. Okay. When a student comes and says to the teacher, can I do it like this, ma'am? Certainly not. Okay. So that certainly not is coming from your rock
Rock
logic
logic.
side of it.
Yes.
But when a teacher or a principal or anybody who says, why not, let's try doing it, is your
Right.
water logic.
Right.
And oftentimes, we educators, I don't want to say oftentimes, but I think many times
Hmm.
we get stuck in the rock logic. And it
Yes.
is only then, when you realize it and move towards water logic, there is
Yes.
a flexibility, there's a fluidity, there is a flow of things that will happen. So
Right.
for me, this has been very useful. Anytime I say, I question myself, like I always choose my response, as I said. I want to think before saying anything. We have a
Hmm.
joke, use Vajpayee's policy. Our Prime Minister Vajpayee never used to say yes or no for months together. But that's the best policy because he's gaining time to think.
Yes.
You see, if you watch Sadhguru's talks, and I
Hmm.
watch his talks very ardently, he
Hmm.
laughs. Whenever anybody poses a question to him, he laughs. That
Hmm.
laughing time is his time to choose what he wants to say.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So always
I've
choose
noticed
before
that.
you respond. Okay? Whether it's your rock logic or water logic.
There's one more thing, ma'am. When we think
Yeah.
of water, you know, energy is saved. There is
Yeah.
no energy to resist.
Yeah.
There's no energy wasted in resistance.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
so you adapt to situations. You are ready to flow, ready to go with it, and with
Absolutely. Yeah.
that no resistance also brings that win-win situation which you spoke about from the previous book,
So
when
very
you're
true.
open to ideas of people and their perspectives.
So very true. So the last one I would say, again, it comes from his book only. Understand the universe of the other person.
Wow,
Okay.
beautiful.
Why I say that, all of us are interacting with people. You have the child in the classroom who's probably not ready to learn. Maybe his universe at home is different. You have the teacher in your team who is probably unable to do anything more than what she is doing. Maybe her universe at home is different. You have that parent who is saying, no, I don't care about all these projects, I only want marks for my child. Here's the universe which is making him talk like that. The day we begin to understand the universe of the people, the context of the people who we are interacting with. So I went to work in Shillong about 20 years back. My husband was posted there. We were in Shillong. I went to the school to take over the senior secondary section of the school. Okay, the founders of the school told me one thing, Madam, you are not in the mainstream India. You are in the northeastern India now. Particularly, you are in Meghalaya. Meghalaya is a matrilineal state. Okay? And like in your mainstream India, if you say, if you don't do your work, I'll call your father, they don't care. If you don't do your work, I'll call your mother, they care. I'll call your sister, they care. Because the society itself is so different. That's one good lesson. which made me think the universe of the people that I'm teaching is different. The second thing he told me was, unlike in mainstream India, girls and boys being friends at this teenage is not strange. So do not look at them and do not pinpoint on them, because they seek strength from one another, because they left their parents in the respective states. They're all staying in Shillong to study. So support them. Don't. So there's so many lessons that you learn when you understand the universe of the person. You have that driver who probably didn't have his breakfast but came on duty. You have that ayah probably who woke up at 3:30 in the morning to make the meal for the entire family, and then she has come to the school. Okay, how to understand the universe of the person? You begin to do it. You begin to recognize yourself to be an empathetic person. So I think these are the a few tools that I wish to choose with all of you, and I think this will help in your personal and professional life in many, many ways.
Fantastic. I think understanding the universe of others, it emerges from the thought of empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
And that is the foundation for creating the trust, faith, the bonding that we create with the people we work with. It's so important.
Right. So important. Absolutely.
So all these 7 tools that you have given makes our toolkit so rich. And I'm sure we'll be able to scale great heights, and not just scale, we'll be able to reach the summit there,
Mount
the apex of our Mount Everest. But while talking to you, I came across, a discussion. I remember the discussion where you spoke to me about how important it is to interpret our own no in the minds. So I would like my viewers and for my sake to understand better what is that no in the mind, and how to know that no in the mind, how to interpret it, what it's trying to say.
Yeah, so this is again a personal lesson. All right. So way back in 96, 97, my husband is an avid trekker. He's an adventurist. Okay. He and his team, he used to be in the Air Force before. He and his team went for a trek to Sri Salem forest area, which is close to Hyderabad. I and another lady, we joined them on the last day, and they planned a short trek for us. Okay. And I was the last person to do any adventure in those days. For me, life was all about, being happy, comfortable, and stuff like that. And never pushing my boundaries, never testing my boundaries. That was me back then. So we went into this along with the trekking team. I managed to climb 4 kilometers, heaving and sighing and complaining and cribbing. Okay. While doing all that, I know I should not do it, but I was doing it. I don't know what is it inside my mind that made me take self-pity on myself. God, I'm climbing a mountain. What am I doing and all that? So finally, we managed to climb those 4 kilometers up. Now the next part is walking down the 4 kilometers and then coming back again. Okay. I said, no way I'm walking down, because if I walk down, I have to walk up. So I'm going to stay put here. Now, poor thing, my husband was the captain of the trek team. Okay. He was trying to influence me. No, I can't leave you here. This is wild forest. There are tigers in this forest. There are Naxalites over here. There are tribals over here. I can't leave you alone. Okay. And I can't stay back because I'm the captain. I need to go with the rest of the team. I said, you do anything you like. I am not moving an inch from here, because my mind was saying no.
Right.
Okay? My mind was saying,
the mental block.
Yeah, it's a mental block. I don't know why you're saying no. And I listened to that no, and I stayed back. Okay? Putting so many people at discomfort. All of them felt bad to leave me and go. Putting myself at risk, because Sri Salem forest area is known for tigers and Naxals and tribals. Okay? Sure enough, I was alone there for 2.5 hours. All right? There were tribals, but they just...
So going up was a bigger fear than that of the wildlife and
I know.
the wild animals and Naxals.
I may not have seen tigers. I saw the tribals. They were just walking by. They didn't even ask me anything. Okay. But those 2 hours, Jaya, helped me reflect on Why did I not go? Is it my body? My body was not complaining. My mind was complaining.
Right.
Okay? It was saying, no, I can't do it. No, I can't do it. No, I
Hmm.
can't do it. So
Hmm.
those 2 hours, the reflection helped me look at myself in such a way that I'm pathetic. To have done this, I'm pathetic. Okay? How weak of me to say, to allow my no to become weak,
Right.
that I did this. Those 2 hours have been a turning point in my life because I understood your mind will generally say no, but you need to closely interpret it as to, is it your mind, is it your body, is it your what is it that's stopping you? And many times the no is very important because there are good things and bad choices, good choices and bad choices. That no is important, but many times that no can make you weak.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
I
When
you
that
have
no
to
stops you
conquer
from
it.
moving out of your comfort zone.
Right, right, exactly. You have to conquer that no. Okay, if it is something that is not good for you, don't do it. But if it is something that will make you something more, climb some more altitude towards the Everest, do it. Interpretation of that no is so important because you need to spend time in reflecting on it. That was a day when I started walking and doing different things, and that's how I've become a Himalayan trekker much later. But interpreting that no that weakens you is very important. And that's what I wanted to say.
Fantastic. Fantastic. It also goes with the theory of experiential learning. It's not just the experience which is teaching you, it is reflection on that experience which solidifies your learning. So
Absolutely.
beautiful it was to know when no is to be followed and when no is to be challenged.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yes.
challenging that no can make you scale, further closer
Seriously.
to your summit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's the same thing with your food. It is with everything. No. When do you listen to your no?
Right.
Okay. And how do you interpret it? These things will really matter. So I think these were some of the tools that I wanted to share. By the way, this no, I heard it when I was walking in the Himalayas also. The first Himalayan trek that I went to,
Hmm.
we were caught up in a snowstorm. We
Hmm.
got lost. We got wet. Our
Oh,
feet were heavy each. I mean, our feet felt like, we 20 kilos each. Okay. And then I told myself, where did I bring myself to? What am I doing? What nonsense is this? Okay. I cursed myself like anything throughout that time of trauma.
hmm.
But when everything cleared, and when you see the view around you, the snow capped mountains,
Right.
that's when you realize your no has been worth it.
True.
So sometimes allow the no, but continue doing what you're doing because the end result will be so beautiful. I mean, imagine the first time you get lost in a snow blizzard, who will go 8 times after that?
Right.
Only because I knew how to interpret the no inside my mind.
Right. And you gave more importance to the result which you experienced, the view that you saw, that conquered the fear of being, in that painful
Yes,
situation, physically exhausting situation.
yes. You could say that, and you could also think of it differently.
Mhm.
It is after seeing the result I realized
Hmm.
my no is useless. Okay,
Fantastic.
my
Yes.
no has no relevance at all because I saw the result of it.
And
So
like you
putting
said, the monkey.
yeah,
It's like monkey. It would just keep jumping at you, saying, no, 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 don't do it.
it was always ready to pull you down.
Yes.
Your own mind is ready to pull you down. The way how you can conquer it is when, as you said rightly, experiential learning. Okay, for me, that end result taught me. I'm glad I did not listen to my no.
Right.
Okay, so each experience like that will make you more stronger, but
Hmm.
you should have the mind to recognize it. Because I
Fantastic.
knew some of the people who were with me in that trek, okay, who screamed at the organizers and went back to the base camp, and who never went on the trek again. Okay, so they went through the same trauma as me, but they
Yes.
gave up. But when you don't give up, then there's something that much more beautiful out there. So I thought, this is one thing I should share.
This is fantastic. And what you have been doing for yourself, going there every year, which
Yeah.
I'm sure grows one's courage and
Uh,
resilience, and
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
makes you so brave. I feel in this process, you also end up inspiring so many others. Every year, I have been following your, pictures from the Mount Everest, and I've been thinking I should at least move out of the house and do a little of something, if not, the Mount Everest. So this actually makes you a positive energy for others as well.
Right, right, yeah. When you have those positive energies within you, I think you rub it off on others also then.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Fantastic. So I think in this toolkits, what you have not specifically mentioned, but you have always referred to it somewhere, is the quiet time you take for yourself for reflection,
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely. I started calling it quiet time after going to IOFC and ATST.
Yes.
Okay? And it's a great, great practice for each one of us to have, because
Yes.
that reflection time, that little space that you take for yourself every day, can make you a better person every day.
Absolutely.
Okay? That
And it
quiet
has to
time
be
is so very, yes, yeah,
a conscious effort to to
to do
to
that.
to know what you think inside and what it's trying to tell you, but it should not be the
Yes,
mind governing you and allowing that noise to control you.
right, absolutely right. That's
So
exactly, I mean, you hit it already.
fantastic, fantastic. So friends, you all must have prepared your toolkit now by now and are ready to sharpen your saw and see to it that you follow these toolkits. I would like you to ask your questions if you have any questions for Sita ma'am, or if you wish to share your thoughts, please feel free. You can either type in the chat box or you can unmute and speak up. Sita ma'am, is that fine with you?
Absolutely fine.
And I did not realize we have it's four close to
Yes.
4:30, and I
Very mindful of
enjoyed,
it.
thoroughly enjoyed learning from you.
Thank you so much.
I would also like my friends to know that there were some practices of ma'am's school which have inspired certain practices in our school. In our school, we have, coins for a cause, which has been inspired by ma'am's practice of coins for the country. Then you have, ma'am, what do you call it? Open street, open stores,
Street store.
street store. So we
Yeah.
we kind of modified it to our Khushi Bazaar and Khushi Utsav. So it's fantastic to always listen to you and learn from you, get such beautiful ideas. And I thank the digital platform today for bringing you to Ramratna International School and these getting these tools from you.
Thank you so much, dear. It was such a pleasure, because I'm so glad you allowed my request to have a conversation instead of a monologue. Okay. I think
I would
I'm
not
more
miss
likely
that
to do
opportunity. I would not miss that opportunity.
I enjoyed sharing my thoughts with you. I enjoyed the questions you posed. I enjoyed the contributions you made to the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, ma'am, and my pranams to you and my love to you. You know that's very genuine and it will always remain. So
Thank you. Thank
thank,
you.
thank you so much. I'm here presenting a small token of our gratitude to you on the screen.
Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Bye bye then.